You ever have one of those moments where the universe taps you on the shoulder and hands you an opportunity so perfect, so poetic, that you almost feel bad taking it? Almost. Because let's be honest. When life serves you revenge on a silver platter, who are you to send it back? That was me, standing in a gas station with a winning lottery ticket in one hand and a marriage I suddenly had no interest in salvaging. But here's the fun part. My wife, Emily, had no idea that while she was playing games with someone else, I was about to play the game of a lifetime. Now, before you think I'm just some bitter guy who caught his wife in the act and lost his mind, let me assure you, this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a slow burn, a lesson in patience, and a masterclass in letting someone dig their own grave while you quietly build a mansion next door. I wasn't always this calculating. I used to be that guy, the reliable husband, the one who worked hard, stayed loyal, and thought that love meant trust. How naive, right? Emily and I had been together for 10 years, married for 7. We weren't perfect, but who is? Our life was routine, predictable. Wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, maybe watch a show together before bed. It was comfortable, safe. I thought that's what marriage was supposed to be: companionship, stability, a team against the world. What I didn't realize was that my wife wasn't looking for a teammate. She was looking for a thrill. And apparently, I wasn't cutting it. The first red flag was small, the kind you brush off because you don't want to be that guy. The one who gets paranoid over nothing. Emily started dressing differently, not just a new outfit here and there, but an entirely new wardrobe. The kind that said date night, rather than married woman running errands. At first, I figured she was just treating herself. She'd always been stylish. But then came the perfume, the late nights, the sudden interest in going out with the girls even though, as far as I knew, she barely had a social life outside of our usual circle. Then there were the little things. Her phone, once casually left on the counter, was now always face down. Texts that made her smile but she never shared. Calls she took in the other room, muffled laughter through the walls. I told myself I was imagining it. That was the worst part. How easily I let myself believe my own lies to avoid facing the real ones. But the real tipping point? The one that turned my suspicions into cold, hard certainty? It was a stupid thing, really. A receipt. A tiny, crumpled piece of paper wedged between the seats of her car. It was from a fancy restaurant downtown. The kind we never went to because we should be saving money. The date? A Friday night she had been working late. The signature on the bill? Not mine. And not just because the handwriting was different. Because it had someone else's name. I didn't confront her right away. That's the part I'm most proud of. The old me, the emotional, trusting, foolish me, would have stormed into the house, waved the receipt in her face, and demanded answers. But this new version of me? The one standing on the edge of a revelation? He played it cool. I tucked the receipt into my wallet, smiled when she got home, and listened as she told me how exhausted she was from work. I nodded, kissed her on the forehead, and told her to get some rest. Because I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to let her expose herself. The following weeks were an exercise in restraint. I watched, observed. She wasn't even trying to be careful. I guess she thought I was too predictable, too trusting, too oblivious. And maybe I had been. But now, I was watching every move she made. She started coming home later and later, with excuses so weak they were almost insulting. Oh, we had an unexpected client dinner. Oh, the girls and I decided to grab a drink after work. Oh, you wouldn't have liked it anyway. And all the while, I played dumb. I asked how her night was. I told her I was proud of how dedicated she was to her job. I even encouraged her to take some time for herself, because, after all, she worked so hard. And she ate it up. She thought she was getting away with it. Thought I was the same gullible man she had married. But I was done being that man. Then came the day that changed everything. I was running errands, just another Saturday filled with grocery shopping, dry cleaning, the usual mindless chores. On a whim, I stopped at the gas station. I grabbed a drink, paid for my gas, and as I was about to leave, I saw the scratch-off tickets by the register. I'm not usually a gambling man, but something in me, call it fate, call it karma, told me to buy one. Just one. A $20 ticket, Nothing crazy. I scratched it off in the car. And then I scratched it again and again. Because surely, I was seeing things. My hands started shaking. I checked the numbers 3 times before I let myself believe it. $5 million. $5 million. Now, most people, upon winning that kind of money, would scream, call their spouse, and start planning their new life. Me? I just sat there. Because in that moment, I realized something. Emily had no idea. No idea that her boring, safe, oblivious husband had just become a multimillionaire. No idea that the man she was betraying was now in a position to completely rewrite the rules of this game. And so I smiled. Because this was my ticket to freedom. Not just from the marriage, but from her lies. From the years of being the safe bet, the predictable husband. From being the man she thought she could deceive without consequence. Emily had placed her bet, and she had bet against me. Now, it was time for me to show her just how bad of a gamble that was. People say money changes everything, but they don't tell you how much clarity it brings. The moment I saw those winning numbers, I knew my life had already shifted, even before I claimed a single cent. It wasn't just about the money. It was about control. I had spent years believing I was in a partnership, convinced that marriage was about loyalty and trust, only to find out that the person I had built my life with had been treating me like a safety net while chasing something more exciting on the side. I could have confronted her right away. That's what most people would have done. Anger, betrayal, a screaming match filled with accusations and denial. But I wasn't interested in theatrics. I was interested in results. I had been handed a golden ticket, not just in the literal sense, but in the opportunity it gave me to orchestrate my departure with precision. She would never see it coming. Winning the lottery forced me to see the marriage for what it really was, an illusion. For years, I had assumed that the distance between us was the natural consequence of time, of life settling into routine. I told myself that the long hours, the nights out with friends, the guarded phone, and the new habits were just phases. But it was so much more than that. The marriage had already ended, only I hadn't been informed. With that realization came the need for action. I didn't rush. Instead, I moved with purpose. The first step was securing my financial freedom. I opened a new bank account, separate from the one we had always shared. Every day, I moved money in small increments, careful not to draw attention. She never checked, never questioned, too wrapped up in whatever fantasy she had built outside of our home. The next step was surveillance. Not the kind that involved private investigators or hired eyes, but the kind that required patience and observation. She had become sloppy. The phone that was once left on the counter was now always face down. The work meetings and social outings became more frequent, the excuses thinner. The smell of unfamiliar cologne clung to her clothes, the way she lingered on texts long after they arrived. She wasn't hiding her betrayal as much as assuming I was too naive to see it. She was wrong. I started digging, not because I needed more proof. I already had plenty, but because I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with. The bank statements, the receipts, the timestamps. The way the charges lined up perfectly with the nights she had an excuse for being out late. Restaurants I had never been to, hotels I had never stayed in, transactions that told a story she had never bothered to share. It became almost laughable how predictable she was. The routine never changed. The fake smiles, the affectionate gestures meant to keep the illusion alive, the casual indifference when she assumed I wasn't paying attention. She was living a double life, confident that the husband she had placed in the category of stable would never question her. But I wasn't just questioning. I was preparing. The legal side came next. I found a lawyer, one who specialized in protecting assets in situations just like mine. With quiet efficiency, everything was set in motion. The house, the investments, the winnings, all placed firmly out of her reach. Every move was calculated, every action taken with the long game in mind. I wouldn't just be leaving. I would be leaving her with nothing. The beauty of it was that she had no idea. While she was planning nights away, making secret phone calls, slipping away for stolen moments, I was making sure that when the moment came, she would have no safety net to fall back on. She had been gambling with our marriage for a long time. The only problem was that she had never realized I was also playing the game. I watched as she walked through the door late again, A practiced sigh, a forced complaint about work, a kiss on the cheek as if nothing was different. It was almost admirable, the way she kept up the act, the way she still believed she was untouchable. She carried on, unaware that every move she made only confirmed what I already knew. The final steps were the most important. The exit had to be clean, seamless, and irreversible. There could be no pleading, no manipulation, no second chances. I needed her to understand, in the most devastating way possible, that she had gambled everything away. The night before I was set to leave, I sat in silence, staring at the life I was about to walk away from. The house, the memories, the remnants of a marriage that had long since died. There was no sadness, no regret, just the certainty that the next time she walked through that door, everything would be different. Because by the time she realized what had happened, I would be gone, and she would be left with nothing but the weight of her own choices. I had always believed that the truth had a way of revealing itself, that no matter how well hidden a lie might be, cracks would form, and eventually, the whole thing would collapse. What I didn't expect was just how spectacularly my wife's deception would unravel. She had spent months perfecting her act, slipping away unnoticed, weaving her web of excuses, confident that I was too oblivious to catch on. But that was the mistake cheaters always made. They confused trust with ignorance. They thought the comfort of routine meant their sins would never come to light. But I had been watching. It started small. The kind of details most people wouldn't notice unless they had a reason to. The way she took extra time getting ready, even for something as simple as a grocery run. The way she started using vague language when she talked about her day, replacing specifics with broad, meaningless phrases. Just work stuff. Had a long day. You wouldn't know them. At first, I chalked it up to stress. We had been married long enough for me to know that sometimes people just needed space. But it wasn't space she needed. It was secrecy. Then came the nights out. She had never been the type to go out much, at least not without me. She had always preferred quiet nights at home, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, binge-watching crime shows that she would later overanalyze in bed. But suddenly, she had a thriving social life that I wasn't part of. Supposed work dinners that ran unusually late, impromptu meetups with friends she had never mentioned before, last-minute plans that were conveniently impossible for me to tag along on. The first time I caught her slipping, it was almost too easy. She had told me she was meeting a few coworkers for drinks after work, a casual get-together to celebrate some team achievement I had never heard about before. I hadn't thought much of it until I got a notification on my phone, a charge on our shared credit card, a hotel bar. Now, I'm not a paranoid man by nature, but there's a difference between a casual bar meetup and a high-end hotel lounge. The kind of place that was more about discretion than celebration. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to stay calm. There were still plenty of innocent explanations. Maybe someone from her team was staying there. Maybe it was just a nice spot they picked at random. Maybe, but deep down, I already knew. Instead of waiting up for her like I normally would, I decided to test her. I sent a simple message. Hope you're having fun. What's the name of the place? It took her 20 minutes to respond. Her answer? A different bar across town. That was the moment everything changed. Not when I first suspected, not when I noticed her growing distant, not even when I saw the charge on my phone. It was when she lied, so effortlessly, so confidently, without hesitation. A casual deception, tossed out as if I was nothing more than an afterthought. I didn't respond. Instead, I did something I had never done in our entire marriage. I went digging. I had never been the type to go through her things. I had always believed that trust was the foundation of any good relationship, that if you had to snoop, something was already broken. But when your wife is feeding you blatant lies, when she's rewriting reality in real time, trust is already dead. I started with her car. She was meticulous about keeping it clean. The center console was always tidy, the seats vacuumed, her personal belongings neatly arranged. But what people don't realize is that small things, the unintentional remnants of their movements, are impossible to fully erase. I checked the glove compartment first. Nothing unusual. Just some receipts, a couple of takeout napkins, a forgotten tube of lipstick. I was starting to think I had imagined everything, until I checked the side pocket of the passenger door. A matchbook. from a restaurant I had never been to. I turned it over in my hand, my mind racing. It was the kind of place that screamed intimate. The kind of restaurant that you didn't just happen upon. You planned to go there. The kind of place where you sat across from someone, leaning in close over candlelight, sharing stolen moments meant for lovers, not coworkers. I checked the dates on the receipts inside her car, scrolling through each one. Some were normal, grocery runs, gas stations, the usual. But then I found it. A dinner for two. Not the kind of thing you split with a group of coworkers. Not a work event. A date. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the receipt so hard it crumpled in my palm. My heart wasn't pounding with rage. No, it was something worse. It was clarity. I had been looking for proof, waiting for that one undeniable sign, but it had been right in front of me the whole time. The late nights, the vague answers, the new habits, the secret smiles she reserved for someone else. My wife was cheating on me, and she thought I would never figure it out. I placed everything back exactly as I had found it, making sure there was no trace of my search. I walked back into the house, past the framed wedding photos on the hallway wall, past the life we had built together, and sat down on the couch. I didn't say anything when she came home later that night, still humming with the energy of wherever she had really been. She kissed me absent-mindedly on the cheek, muttered something about being exhausted, and disappeared into the bedroom. And I just sat there, silent, because she had no idea that the game had just changed. She thought she was in control. She thought she was getting away with it. But she didn't realize she had already lost. The divorce was swift. The moment I had all the proof I needed, I filed the papers without a second thought. There was no dramatic confrontation, no last-minute attempt to fix things. I walked into the house one evening, handed her the envelope, and told her it was over. She didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't even try to defend herself. She barely even looked at the papers. Instead, she scoffed, as if I was the one overreacting, as if her lies and betrayal were just minor inconveniences, like forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. She had the audacity to act offended, like I was the unreasonable one for not wanting to stay married to someone who had spent months sneaking around behind my back. No remorse, no guilt, no regret, just irritation that I had dared to disrupt her comfortable arrangement. She even rolled her eyes when she signed the papers, muttering something about how I was being petty. That was the last real conversation we ever had. By the time the divorce was finalized, I was already building a life without her. I moved out of the house, started fresh, and made sure I left behind everything that had been tainted by her betrayal. I never looked back. I had no interest in checking up on her, no curiosity about what she did after I walked away. She was a chapter in my life that I had no reason to revisit. The best part? She had no idea about the lottery. I hadn't told anyone, not until after the divorce was legally sealed and I had full control over my winnings. She had signed away any right to my assets without a second thought, never realizing she was walking away from a life she would have killed to be part of. I disappeared from her world, bought a new house, traveled, invested, and enjoyed a kind of freedom I had never known before. And for a while, that was the end of it. She was out of my life, exactly where she belonged, until she found out. I don't know how she learned about my win. Maybe a mutual friend let something slip. Maybe she stumbled across it online. But one day, out of nowhere, she was back, like a bad memory that refuses to fade. She started with messages. At first, they were casual, as if she was just checking in, pretending like we had parted on good terms, asking how I was doing, if I had moved on, if I ever thought about her. She must have expected me to respond, to be flattered that she still thought about me. I ignored every message. Then the calls started. At first, they were spaced out, polite voicemails pretending like she was just reminiscing. Then they became more desperate, more frequent, filled with forced emotion, as if she had suddenly realized what she had lost. She started showing up at my old haunts, asking our mutual friends about me, trying to, accidentally, run into me. She even reached out to my family, trying to get them to convince me to talk to her. The final straw was when she showed up at my new house. I hadn't seen her since the divorce, and when I opened the door, it was like looking at a ghost. She looked different, hollow, thinner, desperate in a way that was almost pathetic. The smugness was gone. The arrogance had faded. All that was left was regret, and it clung to her like a cheap perfume. She didn't even try to ease into it. No small talk, no fake pleasantries. Just immediate apologies, rapid-fire confessions about how she had made a mistake, how she hadn't realized what she had until it was gone, how she missed me. She said she had been lost, that she had been confused, and that she had thrown everything away for nothing. She claimed she had changed, that she had grown, that she deserved another chance. I let her talk, let her spill every pathetic excuse, let her beg for forgiveness, let her humiliate herself in the doorway of the life she would never be a part of. And when she finally finished, looking at me with those wide, hopeful eyes, waiting for me to say something, anything, I gave her exactly what she deserved. Nothing. I shut the door in her face. I never responded to her messages, never returned her calls, never acknowledged her existence again, because she wasn't sorry, not for what she did, not for the way she treated me. She was only sorry that she had lost, sorry that she had bet against the wrong man. She had spent our marriage looking for something better, convinced that I was just a placeholder, someone to keep her comfortable while she searched for the next thrill. But in the end, I was the one who walked away with everything. And she? She was left with nothing.